Thank you, thank you. You are too kind. You won't be clapping by the end of this. I'm joking, hopefully. I don't know. Who wants some applause? So my name's Lyndon. As you can tell from my hat, I am from England. And I was born in a small town. Well, it's probably not a small town. A town called Doncaster in the north of England in Yorkshire. My dad is from Jamaica. My mum is from Scotland. And so I have two sets of grandparents that I can't understand at all. The accents are crazy. And so, fortunately, I had a fairly idyllic upbringing. My parents were in a church for as long as I've been born. I was kind of born into it, a legacy child, if you want. And I had a Pentecostal upbringing, and my parents were present and around, and it was a very loving time. When I kind of started growing up and going on my own faith journey, it was kind of step. I played a lot of soccer as a kid, and that meant that I was kind of away for 3/4 of the Sundays of the year. And so I was a summer school kind of kid, and I would come in and try and learn as much as I could, but also just like be with my friends and kind of be a part of the family that my parents and that I'd been introduced to as a kid at my church, but it wasn't really a learning experience as much as it was like a fun time that I would go and then I would go away again. Also, a little context about Doncaster and where I'm from. It's a very homogenous kind of place. It's like 99.7% just white English. There's very little kind of diversity in there. I was the only non-white kid at my school other than my sister, and it was a school of like 500 people. But it was a good time. It was almost as though I got preferential treatment for being other. It was strange. It was like when you get like a bucket of fries and there's like a curly fry in there and you're like, oh, that's great. Look at this one. He's probably quite fast. Let's pick him first for all the sports. So it was an interesting time, and that kind of shaped the church that we were in. It was a very like kind of traditional Pentecostal church, and I didn't know any other way. That was kind of where I grew up, and throughout high school, I was kind of culturally Christian. It was very interesting learning about kind of those buckets that Ryan and Lisa have been talking about in the sermon series, because when the cultural Christian one came up, I was like, "Ooh, I feel that." That was me. It's like a little spotlight on, and it was a lot of kind of baseline. The baseline wasn't very high. Let's say that the stuff that I knew about the Bible was from the kids' Bible. And it kind of worked to get me past maybe one question, but then if anyone had any other questions, I was kind of like, let's refer to something else, or let's change the subject, But I wasn't afraid of being a Christian. I never had to hide being a Christian. A lot of my friends in school weren't Christian, and it was never a point of conflict, and they kind of knew that me and my family had certain values, but I wasn't the best representative of those values to them, in that sense that I didn't really know what I was trying to represent. I had a vague idea, but it was kind of patchwork and not super strong. So when I did the kind of standard things, though, I got baptized at 16 because all my friends were doing it, and they did it at a water park as well, which is kind of crazy. Like, if you ever want kids to get baptized, do it where there's slides, because they'll be like, yeah, I'll slide right into a life with Christ. But it was, I never felt like I had a super deep connection with Jesus. I kind of maybe even knew what it was supposed to look like, but I never kind of tried to grasp that for myself and grab that with my own two hands. I was kind of happy living off my parents' faith, or even my sister's faith, or my friend's faith, and just kind of being around it made me feel good. I liked the community, and the community was great, but I never kind of wanted more. I was happy being where I was. And then after high school, after barely making it through senior year, I got an offer to come play soccer in America, at a small Christian university in Oklahoma City. And so it was something that I was like, yeah, let's do it. I want to be a student athlete, more the athlete rather than the student. I wasn't gifted academically, but it was a way to go to university, and my parents were just happy that I wasn't gonna, stand around, or like sit around the house or go down the bus station and do who knows what. So they were like, yeah, let's go for it, and it's a Christian university as well, so everything's gonna be great. And so we took that leap, and I went over to Oklahoma City, and it was. Man, culture shock is a whole, is a word maybe not strong enough to how I felt landing in that airport, seeing the whole state of Oklahoma from the highest point, which was, like 5 feet up. The place is so flat. And I was like, wow, okay, this is just one big field with a bunch of cows and Christians. So it should be good. I like fields, I like cows, I like Christians. It'll be good. But when I went there and the kind of Christianity that I was witness to was not what I was used to, and whether that's incorrect or correct in terms of what it was like is debatable, but it was a lot for me. I had found comfort in the church at home, and this was the opposite of that. It was uncomfortable, and the people that I was mainly around as well weren't Christians. I was with the soccer team, and that was a rowdy bunch of lads who, made great decisions off the field, as all student athletes do. But it was a time where there was no one else that I could ride on the coattails of, if you would. If I was going to be a Christian, it was under my own strength, and it was kind of based off of things that I truly believed. And I didn't know that was there for me. So without that kind of support system, and with the Christianity and the Christians that I'd met in the first couple of weeks of being there, kind of put me off the church or this kind of church. And I tried other churches. I went with my RA to his church, and it was a predominantly black church, and I had a great time, but it was that I couldn't kind of get there on a regular basis. And it comes back to that cultural Christianity thing of, it wasn't convenient for me to go. Like, my parents took me to church on Sundays in the UK, and so I'd go, because I had nothing else to do, and it was convenient. I didn't have to drive, I didn't have to pay. It was, what else was I going to do? Like, sit and play video games. But when it's kind of your own strength, and you've got to go and do it, and you've got to make the decision, and you've got to be passionate about it, I didn't have that passion, I didn't have that fire. And so it left me. But it being away from that, and being away from that kind of Christian culture, really took it out of me. I didn't really know who I was. I had a bit of an identity crisis, and for the kind of first 6 months of being in Oklahoma City, I tried to go to the church, and I was trying to be who I was back in the UK, but after that kind of fell apart, and I didn't have that background and that community, the village behind me. I just stopped, and I was in my own little bubble, and it was a really probably one of the darkest times that I've had as a person, and that's the privileged life that I've lived, I know. But it was a very isolating and lonely time when I'd kind of FaceTime with my family. It was they could see that something was off, and they were kind of concerned. But it was just a place where I didn't know who I was, I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't know why I was doing anything. And so after that year, the first year of university ended, there was some, what would we say, corruption or NCAA problems. And so our soccer team got cut from 60 to 30, and they were like, you got to go somewhere else, bud. And I was like, all right. So I went home, and fortunately, going to university in America held stands in universities in the UK, and so I got into to university in the UK without any academic, really, reason to be there. Got very lucky, got very fortunate, but even in my first year of university in the UK, it was the same deal. I was away from my family. I was tried to look for a church in the first couple months, didn't find one that fit what I knew or made me feel like part of the community. And so I dipped again, and I had a terrible time. And so in the second year, I got the opportunity to study here at Towson on a year abroad. And again, a lot of this revolves around me not being smart. But there was the opportunity that I could take this year pass-fail in that I didn't need to get, an A, a B, or whatever. I could just be like, hey, turn up 50%, let's go. And you pass the whole year. You don't have to pay for it from my British university. So I was like, this is a win-win. It's no academic stress, no academic pressure, and no reduced financial burden. So I came to Towson, and I loved it. I felt like I was a new person. I was a new me. I came back kind of energized after spending some time with my church in the UK. I came back as like an energized Christian, but I still didn't have the knowledge. I was just happy to be in a church again. And so when it came round to it, I met a woman who is unfortunately not in the room, Andy, who you might have seen. She's like this big, and sounds kind of like me, but a little posher. And we started dating, and after a while, she started bringing me to Horizon. And in the first kind of couple times, not in the first couple times, when she suggested coming, I was like, sure, yeah, whatever. But I wasn't really looking for a place to be. I was, on a year abroad. It was like, I didn't see myself being here. So I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I met Ryan, and I was like, this is the smiliest man I've ever seen. That's crazy. I can see all of his teeth. Like, wow, he's got great dental hygiene. And it kind of just stuck with me. And even afterwards, a couple of weeks later, when you come back and people remember you and they want to talk to you about things that you were talking about the first time, you feel seen, you feel loved. And that's what kind of drew me into Horizon again. And when things got serious with Andrea and I, we got engaged and we got married. And so I came over on a visa on... what did I come over for? Oh, yeah. I came over to do my master's degree, which, I know, a big surprise for the level of academic achievement that I had prior to that. But somehow I sneaked my way in. I talked my way in, maybe. Went and saw the professor beforehand and slipped him a little one. But they let me on the course, and so I was here, and I've been here ever since. And this was kind of where my faith became less of a cultural thing and more of something that's kind of in me. It was where I learned about God, and I learned kind of foundational things that I'd glossed over. It was kind of because I feel like Horizon is a place that wants an educated kind of, what do we call ourselves, congregation, where we're happy that people want to come to the church, but we also want people in the church to have a strong relationship with God and to know God for themselves, right? And that when they leave on a Sunday, they can kind of take whatever information we've been given and actually like put it to work and be Christians outside of this super Christian space. So yeah, it was great teaching from Mark and Ryan and everyone else who contributed. And there was groups where in my previous church there was no men's groups, or there was no kind of teaching groups, and I did a study on the Way of the Wild Heart with Ryan and Josiah and Matt and a bunch of other guys in the church that really kind of gave me the feeling that people here want me to be the best person that I can be, but they also want me to have a super strong relationship with God, and they want me to find that for myself, and they're not willing to just look at me on a Sunday, with my hands up and singing in a genuine way, but they were like, this guy needs to go deeper, and we're going to help him go deeper. And so I felt that, and I felt that love. And so through that kind of kickstarted a revival in me. I went through that course, and I loved it, and I felt that there was, he talks about wounds. Sorry if you can, I think you understand what I'm saying, but I don't know from the accent. Wounds being, the big cuts and stuff in our lives that we don't really realize until, you pour a bit of like hand sanitizer on there and you're like, oh. And so that was what that study was, and that ignited a passion in me to grow more as a Christian and then improve myself outside of that, and to kind of get a more baseline or build upon a stronger foundation of Christ. And a lot of... I knew the stories, and I knew what was kind of being said in popular scriptures, but I had never read the Bible past maybe, I think I got bored at Deuteronomy as a kid. And it was something that I was encouraged to do and had some accountability to do. And so me and people here, we read the Bible, and I carried that on outside of this, and I really kind of grew in my faith and my stature and my knowledge in that. So it was kind of, Horizon is a place that I've found that builds, and whether that's relationships, or it's knowledge, or it's just kind of like self-confidence, it's a place that builds. And so I felt loved being here, and I feel love for everyone in the room. And I think that it's going forward, I always feel empowered to ask questions and to learn more. And we have such great knowledgeable people in this room that are kind of full of faith and full of knowledge, and are always willing to share it. Just asking questions gets you a long way, I've found. So, yeah. My faith means more to me today than it did previously, and I again felt like I was a Christian, or I would have called myself a Christian, and I would have told people I was a Christian. But now it feels like I live a more Christ-focused life than I did, and whether I'm a better Christian or a worse Christian for it is up for debate. But yeah, I just want to say that. So yeah, thank you for listening. That was my testimony. I think Ryan is going to come on.